For decades, millions of workers have been losing ground, blocked from jobs they have the skills to do. Opportunity at Work partnered with many of these workers to elevate their stories and create an affirming name for this category of talent, STARS. At over 70 million strong, STARS reflect the full breadth and diversity of talent in America. We've proven that STARS have valuable skills. Over 30 million are qualified for higher wage work today, but are blocked by the paper ceiling. But it wasn't always this way. In 2000, STARS filled 60% of good-paying jobs. Since then, they've filled just 12% of new ones. The health of our economy, not just for workers, but for businesses, depends on changing this. And the first tears in the paper ceiling are showing. Companies publicly touting workforce programs to hire STARS. States passing skills-first policies to open up pathways to STARS. And STARS themselves are proudly declaring themselves STARS. Now, Opportunity at Work's new STAR Mobility Compass shows us how we can truly break through. It points to 3 areas for collective action that, together, can move 10 million STARS into higher-paying jobs by 2030. 3 million STARS can access greater upward mobility if we focus skills-first practice change on just 30 jobs. 5 million STARS move up by raising wages in just 5 jobs that currently undervalue STARS skills. And another 2 million STARS succeed by filling new-to-world jobs that tap STARS skills in critical roles for businesses in growth industries. The labor market is at a crossroads. Down one path, the status quo holds back millions of skilled workers. Down another, we create more opportunities for everyone by taking action on a simple truth: that the skills you have matter more than where you got them. We have the data, the tools, and the proof. Now it's time to accelerate change together.
Hello, everyone. Hello, I'm Byron O'Geese. I'm CEO and co-founder of Opportunity at Work. And I'm delighted that all of you have joined us, whether here in the room or in our live stream across the country. Special shout out to the members of the STARS Public Sector Hub, and also to the hundreds of STARS that are actually either here or listening, and particularly the members of our STARS Advisory Council, who played such an important role in our work. So, this Tear the Paper Ceiling, the question is, what is the state of Tear the Paper Ceiling? What is the state of the paper ceiling? The paper ceiling is tearing. Because when we started this work, Opportunity at Work was founded really to solve a problem, but also address a contradiction. We had companies everywhere across the country saying we couldn't find skilled workers. And yet, we had workers in those same communities saying and showing, I know what I can do, but no one will give me a chance. I know what I can do, but no one will give me a chance. Our research has solved this contradiction. It's revealed a truth, which is that the so-called skills gap was not the cause of employers' problems. It was the results, the consequence of their collective action. If you think that skills only means a college degree, you screen out more and more STARS. The skills gap gets worse, rinse and repeat. Opportunity at Work and our partners have found a better way. The Tear the Paper Ceiling is more than a campaign. It's a coalition, and it's a movement. And the movement is moving. In 2020, the STARS talent category was born. Tens of millions of STARS are the solution to the skills gap. Why? Because STARS have skills from many routes, and in particular from the work they do every day. In 2022, we launched the Tear the Paper Ceiling campaign, and it's reached millions of people, and it has affected the behavior of thousands of organizations through the coalition. And then in 2024, the STARS Public Sector Hub was born. And in the last few years, we've gotten to 27 states who've opened up more than 500,000 jobs to STARS. And everyone can see it because the public sector does its work in public. So what comes next? The STARS, the State of Paper Sealing shares data, but it also offers a direction. And I can't think of anyone better to kick us off in that direction than Opportunity at Work's Chief Impact Officer, Papia DeBroy. Papia?
Thank you, Byron. I think yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's so nice to see you all today. Thank you for joining us here in person and on the live stream. We actually gathered in Accenture's offices on March 12th, 2020. Some of you might remember that day. They were gracious hosts then. They've been gracious hosts to us today. Thank you, Accenture. And on that day, we presented a problem statement to the field. There were 70 million workers in the United States who were skilled through alternative routes. 30 million of them had skills to make transitions into significantly higher wage jobs if they were given access and opportunity to those jobs. But those workers were facing a barrier in the labor market. We would come to call that barrier the paper ceiling. That barrier looked like degree screens, biased algorithms. They looked like misperceptions and stereotypes. And the impact of the paper ceiling was dire. In fact, in 2020, if you looked at a STARS career, it was taking them 30 years to earn the same wages that a bachelor's degree candidate was earning on day one of work. College has been and it will be a critical pathway to higher wages in this country, but that inequality was new. In fact, if you looked at the 2 decades prior to 2020, what you'll see is that STARS had lost access to middle and high wage jobs to the tune of almost 7.5 million jobs. So precisely the jobs that had offered them upward mobility historically were the jobs that were falling away for this population. And so on that day in 2020, we convened, many of you were here, and we asked a question. Could we arrest that downward trajectory of opportunity for STARS? We're here today to talk about the state of the paper ceiling, and I'm so proud to report that that trajectory has been arrested. In fact, what we see over the last 5 years is that STARS have regained 750,000 of those jobs. That didn't happen on its own. That happened as a result of thousands of organizations and leaders across the country making choices to move us in this direction. What you saw at the top of the program was a set of calculations. How might we think about now bending this curve up and starting to see STARS in even more economic opportunities across the United States? What the STAR Mobility Compass shows us is that there's actually a lot of ways to get there. If you focused on the skills of the workforce today, you could see how valuable they are for new-to-world jobs that are starting to pop up in communities across the country, how valuable they are on skills-based pathways that could be activated, and how valuable they could be if we elevated a subset of lower-wage jobs. Now, the math tells us this is possible, sure, but I think for us at Opportunity at Work, we have conviction in this because we've had the pleasure of working alongside many of you these last few years. We've stood up 2 networks, the Tear the Paper Ceiling Coalition of private sector, nonprofit, and philanthropic partners, and the STARS Public Sector Hub, comprised of more than 100 public sector leaders. Together, a lot of leaders within these 2 networks are showing us what's possible. I'm going to share a little bit about what we've been learning, but I want to back up a little bit. Because in 2020, our organization, Opportunity at Work, decided we were going to anchor in a theory of change. We call it our ABCs within the organization. We believed that if we could generate awareness that STARS were a skilled, diverse, vast, an overlooked population of talent, we could motivate people to act. And then we would start to see behavior shifts. And when those behavior shifts became systematic, we would actually experience changed outcomes for stars. And so we started on this journey. We built an asset-based narrative about stars anchored in their skills and potential. And we had the phenomenal experience of partnering with the Ad Council. Together with them, we built the Tear the Paper Ceiling campaign. And what extraordinary results we've seen from it. In sum, the campaign has generated more than 7 billion impressions. We've seen thousands of media mentions, $100 million in donated media. Perhaps most importantly to us, we're seeing how many people want to act as a result of it. Millions of people are coming to our website on a quarterly basis to tell us, we want to do something about this. It's also shifting perceptions. We run a quarterly survey to understand how perceptions are shifting over time as a result of this campaign. And what you see on the right-hand side of the page here is that almost 1 in 4 employers today know what the paper ceiling is. 83% of them are more likely to hire a star today than they were 2 years ago. And perhaps most compellingly, 15%, or almost 10 million stars, are identifying to be a star. The action that's probably been most visible in the public are the actions taken by 26 states, opening over 600,000 jobs in the last several years. In 2022, Governor Hogan, the governor of the state of Maryland, stood up and made an announcement. He was going to remove the degree requirement from over 30,000 jobs across the state. He was tearing the paper ceiling. What has happened in the 2 years since is 25 states have followed, either through executive orders or legislative action. We've had the pleasure of working with 17 of those states, and what inspiring leaders so many of these states have within them. Now, while this action has been taken in a very public way, we've also had the privilege of working with a lot of private sector leaders who are taking similar actions within their own organizations. And in sum, we've been inspired by hundreds of these leaders. These leaders have taken our data, our narrative assets, they've taken the communities that have been built in these networks, and they've driven real transformations within their organizations. In the state of Colorado, with Governor Polis, their team has done some extraordinary work driving a top-to-bottom transformation. At Train Technologies, we've seen scaling of a successful apprenticeship program to bring more stars into middle and high-wage jobs. And with some of our platform partners, we've seen them pick up the mantle, build technology products for this population to help employers find more stars. There are so many examples of how people are taking this mandate and moving it forward in their organizations. We've had the privilege of learning alongside all of them, or many of them, not all of them. And our hope certainly is that many of you might take up this mantle as well. We've published actually a library of cases on our website to actually teach what some of these leaders have been doing. We welcome you to check it out. These leaders are driving impact. In sum, last year across this network, they opened up more than 500,000 jobs to stars. They hired 65,000 stars, and we see that stars in these networks are overperforming the labor market in double-digit figures in both wage mobility and wage growth. But like we said at the beginning, we are just getting started. In fact, today, we're publishing a State of the Paper Ceiling dashboard. Our intention is to show our progress, actually elevate a set of understandings about how awareness is shifting in the labor market, how behavior is actually moving both within our network and at the labor market, and what types of outcomes we're seeing for stars. We want you all to hold us accountable because we've set our next target. Our 10-year goal is to see 1 million stars experience upward mobility within our networks. We're so grateful to all of you for being along this journey with us these last 5 years. We welcome you to join us for this next phase. Thank you so much. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce from the beautiful state of Utah, Governor Cox.
In recent years, we've learned that traditional job qualifications, such as a college degree, may not always be the best indicators of a candidate's abilities. As industries evolve and skills become more specialized, public and private sector employees alike are reevaluating their hiring practices. I am proud to say that the state of Utah is one of those employers, redefining our approach to hiring talent. In December 2022, we launched a skills-first hiring initiative to eliminate degree requirements for state jobs. Prior to that, the competency-based hiring amendment passed, which removed minimum education requirements for state jobs unless the position legally requires a degree. Skills First takes our skills-based practices to the next level by ensuring we don't apply heavy degree preferences that eliminate candidates before they even interview, renewing our commitment to candidates' skills through alternative routes. We have amazing employees who've gained skills and competencies through other ways, including on-the-job training, military service, workforce training, and certificate programs. Within the state of Utah's executive branch, roughly 88% of jobs do not require a degree or any other credentialing. By removing degree requirements, we've opened up our jobs to include those who are in rural areas and in our underrepresented communities. If we look at the state as a whole, more than half of our 1.8 million workforce are workers who gained their experience through these alternative routes. But we see as many as 45% of them get screened out of jobs or higher paying positions because they lack a degree. This is why we are so focused on changing the hiring landscape. We encourage other states and government leaders to take a look at their hiring practices and join us to create more opportunities for those who live in our communities. And we look forward to learning about what others are doing as well.
Thank you for joining us today. Next, we'd like to introduce our main panel, our main event, moderated by Christopher Zara of Fast Company. We're joined by Jim Shelton with Blue Meridian, Lydia Logan of IBM, and our very own Courtney Haynes with Opportunity at Work.
Hello, check, is this on? Okay. Can everyone hear me? All right. How's everybody doing? Great. I am super excited to be here. I'm Christopher Zara, a senior editor at Fast Company magazine. When I was first asked to do the panel and talk about this topic, I immediately went to a point in my career in 2016 when I had been laid off from a big newsroom in New York City. I had about a decade of experience as a journalist at that point, and I was like, okay, you know, it sucks being laid off, but like, oh, I'll get scooped up real fast. So like, this was 2016, and it was right around the time that resume filters were becoming, you know, widely adopted by hiring managers and companies. So I started putting my resume out there, and I didn't get any kind of response at all. And I started to realize it was because I wasn't even getting through the filters because I don't have a college degree. So the 10 years of experience that I had as a journalist basically didn't matter at that point. And it was a real wake-up call for me that there was a problem in this country that needed to be fixed. And I'm gratified by groups like Opportunity at Work that are working to fix it. So that's what the conversation is going to be about today. I hope it's a good one. I'm really excited to have my three guests on the panel. And we're going to talk about what it takes to redesign this system and how that's been going. So let me just put my note cards here. I guess I'll start with Jim. So Jim from Blue Meridian. Blue Meridian is known for a couple of things. Number one, thinking long term, right? And then number two, making really big bets. So you have to think long term and you have to think about big picture stuff. Why is this movement important for Blue Meridian and for you in particular?
Well, there are probably three reasons that are important. Number one, the challenge that you talked about has been around for a long time. We've been undervaluing people for years, and because it would be excluded people from opportunity, that problem by itself would make it a worthy thing worth investing in trying to solve. The second thing is that it's about to get worse, right? We're about to have people whose degrees are going to become less valuable because they're going to be displaced from their current jobs, or their jobs are going to change pretty significantly. And I'm referring to AI, but other things as well.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
there.
sorry. And our ability to actually recognize people for the skills that they have and help them to map the shortest pathways from those skills to new opportunities has just gotten a lot more important. The third is that, frankly, challenges are great, but the realization that there's something you can actually do about it.
Mm-hmm.
The rewiring of the employment marketplace that Opportunity at Work has talked about, frankly, that Byron has talked about since he was in the Obama administration, is something that now we see that you can actually make progress on. The public sector, interestingly, has led the way on this innovation. We're seeing that you can actually not only do this, but the tools are becoming more available to acknowledge people's skills in ways that we couldn't before. We still have that gap that really needs to be solved to unlock it.
Right.
But the more important thing is that we can show that there are tons of millions of people we can place in these roles in ways that we couldn't have before if we at scale.
It's interesting that you say a lot of the degrees that people have now are going to be obsolete or not going to be as valuable in the future. That's something I think that a lot of people don't think about, because when you go to school, you're studying for, theoretically, a career that you're going to have for a long time. And we're in a world now where it's changing so fast.
It's an interesting thing, though. How many of you are working in the field where you got your degree right now? Right.
That's not a lot of hands.
So the reality is, like I said, we've had this problem for a long time. The credential has allowed you to navigate it because people use it as a proxy. But the reality is lots of people have been able to take their skills and apply them in new contexts. No reason to believe that people who don't have degrees can't do that. But more importantly, we're going to need a lot of people who have degrees to be able to make that transition much more fluidly than they did in the past.
Lydia Logan, I want to bring you into it. IBM has been a pioneer in skills-first hiring. I remember Ginny Rometty talking about this almost a decade ago.
Yep.
I was so excited that someone was talking about it at that time. And and a lot of companies have followed what you've done. So I guess I would love to ask, what is the key to embedding this kind of a system across a company as big as IBM?
So I'd say, first of all, there's a need to fill a gap in the workforce, particularly in tech, where the skills are constantly changing and evolving. We're now seeing this across the board. So if you need the talent, you're going to find the talent, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't really have you can't afford to be too exclusive. You have to find the talent you need to get the job done. So we used to say, we still say, right, talent is everywhere, opportunity is not. For our US postings, 50% of them eliminated a 4-year degree requirement because we needed to open the aperture and make them available to people who could do the job. We do this across the company. So we have a Skills First Policy Coalition looking at new ways to use federal funds to, short-term Pell and other kinds of things that help to get people the skills they need to get to work. We have the Skills Build program, which offers free skills around the world in multiple languages for high school, university, and adult learners, along with IBM credentials and, in some cases, certificates for community college students in data analytics and cyber. We do this for IBMers and looking at the skills that we have and upskilling across the company through things like our Watson X Challenge. We also train hiring managers. So not all hiring managers, particularly in large companies, are sitting in HR, right? They're throughout the company. So you have to make sure you're reaching those people and saying, if you're posting a new job, are you thinking about the skills? Does it really require a degree? And for us, it's an opt-in. So you have to check a box that says,
That's really fascinating.
This opening requires a degree rather than an opt-out. So there are some things that are small and technical and other things that are really about a culture shift in how you attract and select talent.
Yeah, because any organization is going to have even people on small teams who might be in charge of hiring just a small amount of people, and in which case, if they're not getting the message, that you could easily see how that kind of a top-down approach that you seem to be taking really is necessary.
Absolutely. And we have apprenticeships, and we can talk about all kinds of things, but, Ginny Rometty called them new-collar jobs. But the idea that IBM was a company, a learning company, where really what you could do, what you knew and were able to do, mattered more than where you went to school, is something that has been around for decades. I've been there for 4 years, and it certainly predated me, and it's a baked-in, ingrained part of our culture.
Courtney Haynes, Opportunity at Work has made a really great case for what stars are actually capable of, what they can do, and what stands in their way. We've seen data showing that 10 million stars could be in better jobs by 2030, which actually isn't that far away. It sounds like a long time away, but it's only 5 years away. What do you think, what needs to change to make that vision a real thing?
Yeah. I mean, there's 3 things that we lay out in our research. One is we need more representation of stars in good paying jobs. 2, you saw the data. It takes 30 years for a star to catch up from a wage perspective with someone with a bachelor's degree on day 1. So we have to compensate stars for the work that they're doing, for the skills that they have. Number 3, we need to ensure that stars have access for the future jobs that will exist. So we need to keep doing what we're doing. The evidence is here, and I hope that so many who are joining us on the live stream, those that are in this room, so many shared friends, I hope you see yourself in this data, because it's your work. So we've got to keep going, and we have a path forward, but it does require collective impact, which is hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
And it does require big, bold leadership from employers. It does require learning. We're not going to have all the answers, but we can't give up. It does require evaluation. We have to be held accountable, as my colleague Papia said. So the shift is happening, the gears are moving, but this is about unity. The ceiling, it's starting to tear. So now we need to scale it.
Jim, I'm curious your take on some of the data we just saw. So we just saw, I think the big picture there was that the downward trajectory has sort of like been arrested, and it's like not as it's not reversed, but it seems to be slowly moving in the right direction. I'm curious what you made of that when you saw that trend.
Well, especially in our current environment, I think it's critical. We don't really ever give credit for what it means to reverse a trajectory, right? Mm-hmm. That means you move past the decline rate to something that's positive. So if it was flat before, you would have grown by that amount. That is a tremendous accomplishment in and of itself. It means you have actually slowed the momentum and changed not only changed direction, which is obvious, but the equivalent of rapid growth. Okay? Yeah. The second part of it is that that is actually to the tune of millions of folks. It showed hundreds of thousands of folks that were in these jobs. But the reality is, if it had kept going with the same trajectory, you would have seen a much bigger gap. So the reversal means that actually we've already impacted millions of people. That to me says that the potential, especially because they now have the compass, that shows where the gateway entry jobs are, and they're so few, and they're relatively easily trained, that the pathways are clear and the training can be developed. It's relatively straightforward. So all that is the great news. There are 2 things that I'm concerned about that are trends right now. One is that a lot of times we are very comfortable in appreciating stars for their technical skills, things that are relatively easily measured. And what we're seeing is, again, back to the AI thing, technical skills are going to be the things that kind of go first in some ways. So you're looking for those other skills that people have that make them valuable, especially humans. And we're not great at measuring those yet. So how we actually stay away from creating new proxies for those skills that tie back to the old things that we're comfortable with will be a big thing that we have to get out of our way.
Yeah, you didn't use the term soft skill there, but is that sort of what we're talking about?
No, I don't want to call them soft skills. So,
like I didn't want to speak for you.
No, I appreciate it. I don't want to call them soft skills because I'm going to try and keep this really short. So we're at a really fantastic time in history where what your grandmother told you, what you know from your own intuition, and what the science and the research are showing are absolutely clear. That what unlocks human potential is the environment you're in, the relationships you have, and the experiences you have. Mm-hmm. And the reality is then that means that what we learned before, which is a lot about fixed capabilities, is completely bogus, and we can actually now prove it. We have receipts. And what that means,
Fixed capabilities, is you're saying, is that's garbage.
yeah, it's garbage. It's garbage. Whether you call it epigenetics, like it doesn't matter what you call it. Many of you were in Philadelphia. I'm sorry you're seeing me again. But Raj Chetty,
I wasn't there. So.
Okay, well, a lot of folks know Raj Chetty's research, who was an economist at Harvard. He showed, in studying economic mobility, that if you move the kid from a low opportunity neighborhood to a high opportunity neighborhood, that the kid would outperform any of the kids in their old neighborhood and the control group that he had. And the earlier you moved them, the more likely it was that they would make progress. Well, that's great as an intervention, but the real point here is it's one more data point that says it's never the kids, right? Whether you take the Bloom's taxonomy of what the impact of tutoring is and says to take kids in a regular classroom and give them a one-on-one tutor, you can make them a 90th percentile student, that means it was never the kid. Right. So once again, we're in this context where we have to recognize that every single one of our people, that whether it's your current employee, older employee, or a young child, has the potential to actually reach these levels of performance, and we've not been giving them the shot.
Right. So in other words, what you're saying is it really is proximity has a lot to do with it. Where you are.
Sorry, I guess I didn't say the most important thing. The relationship's part of that, right? How you make people feel like they belong, how you actually work with people so you can bring out the best in them. That is essential to unlocking potential. So it is actually both on the giving people opportunity side, but it is actually when you are looking for folks who are going to, in the environment where technical skills are going to be easier to find, people who have those skills of being able to unlock other people, those are not soft skills.
Right.
They're very tangible and hard to measure and very human. Like, it is the human relationship that ties into your literal biological system that unlocks other people's potential. And that's what's going to be critical in this next phase.
Well, since we're talking about the future, Lydia, I'd love to bring you in, and we've mentioned AI a few times. Obviously, that's the big disruptor in the workplace right now. I'd love to hear what you think about, like, what are the skills that people are going to need, that workers are going to need in the future, the near future, maybe even in the not so distant future, in like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, so I think Jim's absolutely right. Whether you call them durable skills or critical skills, or in Europe they're called transversal skills because they cut across every sector and every career type. It's those skills like communicating, collaborating, problem solving, the things that are uniquely human, that will make the difference. And they will need to be done everywhere. We're moving into an era where you're not just having humans leverage, generative AI to do basic productive things. All of that, like, we're all getting used to that now. The next wave are digital workers. So you're talking about AI agents. We'll be managing individual agents, teams of agents, hybrid teams of people and agents. You need to understand, when do you apply an agent? When do you use human ability to make decisions above and beyond what the technology is telling you in order to get the job done in the best way possible? So you need to be able to do teamwork. That's a human thing, just like Jim was saying. You need to bring out the best in people, and then you need to know, where do you apply, AI and automation, and where are you using people? And so that's what we're looking at in the future. All of those are things that we are all going to have to learn. I mean, I won't say how long ago I got my college degree, but certainly that had nothing to do with what I learned.
Digital agents didn't play into it yet.
They were not a thing. So when you think about the half-life of skills and how that's getting shorter and shorter, degrees are not becoming obsolete, but I think, right, it's always going to be plus, whether you got a degree, a certificate, a short-term training program, on the job, it's that plus. You're gonna have to keep learning, and we're gonna have to figure out how to select people who learn to learn, select people who are curious and can bring people together and find unique ways to solve challenging problems, And that's, models are trained for fit for purpose things. They are not sort of, broad sweeping, solve everything all the time. That's the kind of the sci-fi paranoia part of it. You need people who understand how to use it and use it effectively, and those are the skills we'll be needing, and a lot of those are really uniquely human skills.
Yeah. It gets a little scary though. I think how do you manage the fear in the workplace among workers who are just worried about the change or scared? Like, people are used to doing things a certain way.
Change and discomfort go together, or you can say change and comfort don't go together, right? There's no, I don't want to say there's no point in resisting, but I'll say there's no point in resisting. Like, it's happening, right? Yeah. So you can either participate, lean in, learn the skills, start with the foundation, understand, what works, get a basic understanding. We have an AI fundamentals course on skills build. But we're going to have to understand how the workforce is changing and what that means for you. At IBM, we are encouraging people. It's not a hard measure, but internally in teams, we're saying, okay, we have returned to the office. Are we coming together? What can we do as a team? What can we automate? Can we use some of the AI tools available to us and automate 30% of what we do so we can spend more time ideating, more time being creative, more time figuring out how we get the best out of each other. That's how we're approaching it.
Courtney, you had a...
Yeah, this conversation, sometimes I always wish that I had a crystal ball to look in the future, but then sometimes I say, no, that would probably be a terrible idea. The fact of the matter is there's so many unknowns, but we all know that the world of work is changing, and it's changing really, really fast. And so all we can do is kind of look at history to some degree. Whenever there's major economic shifts, either downward trends, recessions, layoffs, or if there's some type of industrial revolution, we have choices to make. We have to do things differently. Employers, training providers, individuals. Over the next 5 years, we're going to have 60 million job transitions, 60 million hiring decisions, from turnover, from growth. And so is this going to be a moment where we repeat patterns and exclude people? Or is this going to be a moment where we allow for true accessibility for the roles of the future? And the only answer can be yes at this point.
I'm curious from your perspective as someone who works for Opportunity at Work and thinks about this kind of work a lot. Do you worry that with this moment that we're in of uncertainty will cause people to shift back into old patterns and old ways of hiring? This could be for anyone on the panel, really.
Yeah, when you look at what happened you talked about your own experience, Christopher, in 2000, 2008, 2020, those were moments in time that were harmful for stars. Mm-hmm. And it took a long time to get back on track. But I think because of some of the work that is happening in the field with the basic awareness, with kind of this steady, I'm doing things differently, lots more is known on kind of what we should lean into, what we should lean out. So sure, history has shown that there's patterns, but also there's a lot more people who are advancing the field in this way. There's so much more awareness. So again, I think it goes back to choices. People have to choose things differently.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the technology is advancing at a pace where there are going to be many people who traditionally would have looked like a great fit for a job and have not learned new skills that apply in today's context. So I'm going to choose the positive view, which is here is a great chance for people to lean in on gaining new skills and taking the new opportunities and the new jobs that are being created, possibly even over and above people who on paper may look like traditionally the candidate who would have been selected. If you can show what you know and are able to do and you can demonstrate it, and that's what we spend a lot of time talking about credentials and other ways of showing, showing your skills. Now is the time where I think it's wide open. I really do.
It does
But we're going to either miss it or make it. And I think with Opportunity at Work, we will make it.
Jim, do you feel that we're in a paradigm paradigm shift in the same way that we were in 2008 or 2020?
I think we're in a much bigger paradigm shift than that. And I think there are two directions that I'd like to explore. One is the negative one. We talked a lot about the negative things, which is, the data showing that applied AI, first thing it does is it moves the bottom up, right? It helps people at the top, especially depending on the role, but it definitely moves the bottom up. And so you're going to need a little less people. You're going to have a lot less distance between the top people and the people who are in the middle. And the real question is going to be, how are we going to make decisions about who we keep? And traditionally, when there's not really clear differences about who we keep and who excels, we tend to go with people who are familiar to us, who we like. And that will play right into the worst of our habits.
Mm-hmm. And people in our networks, which is where school often
comes in. Which tend to be closed. Yeah. And similar, right? So we could see an exacerbation of the problems that we had. There's another direction I'd like to explore, which is I'd love to see stars be like a lot of energy going into helping stars give the system the finger. And here's what I mean by that. What I mean by that is traditional access to education, traditional access to skills, all of a sudden, I can get a lot of things done without you giving me access. I can get an app produced because I had a good idea. I can turn my pretty well-written letter or a pretty well-written manuscript into a really well manuscript and get coaching along the way. I can do a lot of things that make me now a disruptor, not somebody who has to stand at the door and wait for you to let me in. And so I'm very curious about the opportunity to unlock the potential of these stars to be the disruptors to help us figure out what the world looks like on the future, as opposed to having to stand around and wait for somebody else to let them back in.
Yeah, you have to wonder what's going to happen to traditional gatekeepers, which I think is a big, it's always a question. When you have a disruption, any kind of a technological disruption, you have what happens to the original gatekeepers, like the record producers who back in the day had to produce records, and now of course everything's streaming and looks like we're coming up on time. So I'll do a last wow, that went by fast, didn't it? I'll do a last, I'd just love to get a last question in for everyone, and I'll start with you, Jim. What is your next bold step to tear the paper ceiling? What's the next step you're going to take?
I want to, two quick things. One, I want to help lean in behind states and employers that want to actually do this work. There's a coalition that's already started. I think more folks are ready to lean in. Would like to lean in a bigger way to help folks figure that out. The second is I'd like to find somebody who's getting really smart about how to do more assessment on these durable skills, or whatever we want to call those skills, so that we can have a more valid way and really pay attention to inherent biases and things like that as we're developing the tools, so that we can use those in a way that actually accelerates not only access, but equitable access.
Great. And Lydia, same question?
One thing, I always have trouble with this, like, pick one thing.
Rapid fire.
So I will echo what Jim said. I think this is a moment for disruption. I think about this moment as a time when we went from network television and a handful of newspapers to individuals being able to take the mic and report their own news. Now people don't have to wait to be let in. You can use technology to create your own thing, your own company, your own future, your own identity, and advance that in the market. So I think that's one great disruption. We are offering free training in order for people to be able to do that. And then I think, it's important for us to think about, how we work together. We have a commitment at IBM to skill 30 million people by 2030. We're at 16 million now and ahead of schedule. We also have a commitment to skill 2 million people before the end of 2026. And so we're doing our part to make sure people who may not have had access to a high-cost program can at least get started, and they can do that with IBM, and they can do it for free.
And Courtney, what's your next big bold step?
Well, I think one of the things I want to say in this answer is what's so common across all of us who are here today on the live stream who are working on this is the fundamental belief in the American worker. And there are so many organizations and people. It's been the greatest privilege of my career the last 20 years to work with organizations, work with the people within them, program associates, hiring managers who are doing things differently, taking risks, working day in and day out for the American worker to do what they can do. It's extremely powerful, and so my call is to keep doing what you're doing. I know times can feel scary, but now is not the time to back down. We're making real progress. And so I'd like to ask, if you're making bets on systemic change and what the job market can look like and what the future can be, make a bet on us. Make a bet on STARS.
That is a great place to end it. And can we just get a round for our three guests? Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. One more round of applause for our panelists to join us today. We have a few more special treats for you. First, we're going to play a video called Hire Stars. We hope you're inspired by the stories they tell, followed by a special message and a conversation from our Senior Vice President of Membership Experience and the Private Sector, Audrey Mikael.
I wish companies knew that a degree wasn't completely representative of the skills and value that I had to offer.
Hi, my name is Aika Singerbeva.
My name is Abraham Wordsworth.
My name is Clifford Votto.
Hi, my name is Keisha Griffin.
I'm a humble leader.
I am a self-starter.
I come from a non-traditional skill and education background. I want to be a role model for others that look like me and think that they can't be in this industry.
I wish companies knew that people with non-traditional backgrounds like mine will bring not only diversity and inclusion, but also will solve problems that will make a better future we all need.
I became a father at 18. I couldn't go back to school. When I worked at Lenovo, I managed 200 resellers on the East Coast. I built enough relationships with most of my resellers that I was their go-to computer guy.
I started out working at a solar company where, again, I was selling a product, selling a value.
When I worked at Autodesk, I built data-driven security snapshot that helped each employee to understand and address top cybersecurity risks, which ultimately made the entire company safer.
Imagine if college wasn't the top qualifier.
If CEOs and hiring managers could get rid of the degree requirement and instead focus on a more holistic picture of the candidate.
We would sit at the table with all kinds of different background, cultures, colors, religions, and minds.
I am currently an account executive at Salesforce.
I'm an IT executive support lead at Slack.
I am a solution developer and I work for Adobe.
A senior information security program manager at Airbnb, and I really love what I do.
Isn't that great? And thank you, Rena. I'm so grateful to be here sharing the story of the progress we've made so far. As you just heard, the work is happening, and I have the privilege of introducing a few more champions of this movement who have partnered with us to tear the paper ceiling. First, Aidan McLaughlin, Global Director, ESG Brand at Indeed. Aidan is kind enough to join us from Dublin, Ireland, where it is well past working hours. And Aidan has been a tremendous partner to us. The whole Indeed team has been, in fact. The learning and collaboration we've experienced with Indeed is the very essence of partnership. Aidan, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Aidan McLaughlin, Global Director of ESG Brand and Marketing at Indeed, and I'm joining you here from Dublin. It's a real privilege to be part of this conversation with leaders across sectors who are working to reshape the future of work. I just love hearing these stories of stars. At Indeed, we exist to help all people get jobs, and that means removing outdated barriers like unnecessary degree requirements, and recognizing people for what they can do, not just where they've been. It's why we proudly joined the Tear the Paper Ceiling movement and why skills first hiring is central to our strategy. Indeed is the world's leading matching and hiring platform with over 350 million unique visitors every month. And our partnership with Opportunity at Work has shown us how change happens through a clear arc, awareness, behavior change, and outcomes. And it starts with narrative. Tear the Paper Ceiling has been vital in shifting how people think about talent, about hiring, and about themselves. And campaigns have been across media, podcasts, storytelling. They've elevated those stars and brought their journeys into the spotlight. One of the most powerful moments in this work that has happened at Indeed is at Indeed FutureWorks, our flagship client event. Our Chief People and Sustainability Officer, LaFawn Davis, stood on stage with comedian and former Daily Show host Trevor Noah and revealed that they are both stars. That moment stopped people in their tracks. Hiring managers, chief HR managers, it changed their perceptions, and that's where real transformation begins. And from that awareness, we moved into action. Our product teams have developed features that make it easier for employers to hire based on skills. And we're partnering with employer cohorts alongside Grads of Life. And we're working across product or across comms and research to build those inclusive tools from the ground up. And now we're focused on outcomes. We're investing in UX research and Hiring Lab, our economic think tank, to track real impact. Are those stars getting hired? Are we changing systems and not just the stories? And that brings me to the future. A vision was shared by our CEO, Chris Hyams, at FutureWorks, where Trevor Noah and LaFawn powerfully shared that they were stars. And he spoke about what's next. A world where every job seeker has their own personal talent agent powered by AI, helping them discover, navigate, open horizons, and grow their careers. We're currently testing this tool in the US and hope to launch it more broadly this year. And we're partnering with Opportunity at Work and Tear the Paper Ceiling to help impact that product. And for employers, we envision a trusted AI-powered partner that can remove bias and inefficiency and help them post at scale and assess candidates by skills and ultimately hire faster and hire for potential. Imagine that future where job seekers and employers, each with their own smart, hard, human-centered guide, meeting in the middle based on skills, not just pedigree. That's the world we're building alongside the Tear the Paper Ceiling movement, and we know we can't do it alone. Thank you all for being part of this work. Together, we're not just tearing the paper ceiling, we're replacing it with something better, a system that unlocks potential for everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aidan. I really appreciate your time with us today. Next, it is my distinct honor to introduce the governor of the great state of Colorado, Jared Polis. As governor, Governor Polis is focused on making Colorado the best place to live, work, and do business. Under his leadership, Colorado continues to lead the way with support for opportunities that connect Coloradans to the skills they need to fill in-demand jobs, supporting Colorado's strong economy now and in the future. Governor Polis is currently serving as chair of the bipartisan National Governors Association, and his chair initiative, Let's Get Ready, Educating All Americans for Success, is focused on ensuring students have the skills they need to meet the needs of today's and tomorrow's economy. So please join me in welcoming Governor Jared Polis.
Good afternoon. It's great to join you. Thank you to Opportunity at Work for putting this together. We are very proud to lead the way with partners like Opportunity at Work and tools like the Public Sector Hub that make it easier and more affordable for Coloradans to get the skills that they need and make sure those skills are credentialed to power our economy for them and for our future. Today in Colorado, there's 1.3 million workers skilled through alternative routes, what we can call STARS. At the state level, we're proudly connecting STARS to employment opportunities. We have eliminated our degree requirements. We've moved to skills-based hiring as a state, and we're encouraging the private sector to follow the way. And we've really found that skills-based hiring helps us build a more representative and better workforce. And for most industries, a degree is not the only way or even the best way to demonstrate aptitude and competency. And frankly, sometimes a degree can even be a bad proxy for for what skills or what level those skills are at for a person. Our economy values people for what they can do as opposed to what degree they have, and we want to make sure that everybody is able to deploy their skills no matter how or where they got them. Skills-based talent recruitment combined with work-based learning talent development opportunities really help bridge the skills mismatch. I signed an executive order to make skills-based hiring our state hiring practice. Today, 100% of eligible positions within the state are posted as skills-based. And we're really leading by example. Last March, state vacancies were 24%. By this January, they went to 19%. In the past 4 years, job turnover has decreased substantially as well. So we're starting to see the indicators move in the right direction from our movement to skills-based hiring. I also signed an executive order that makes sure the state agencies are leaning into work-based learning, apprenticeships, so we can cultivate our own talent and be a model employer. And when we talk about workforce, we know that to meet the needs of our growing and dynamic economy and to remain competitive, we have to make sure that students have the skills they need to have successful careers. And that includes expanding opportunities through apprenticeships, short-term credentials, looking at what does and doesn't work to prepare learners for successful careers, and aligning the skills development wherever we do it, school districts, private sector, community college, to the very real needs of the private sector and the jobs that are open today and tomorrow. As chair of the Bipartisan National Governors Association, my chair's initiative, Let's Get Ready, Educating All Americans for Success, is sparking a very important bipartisan national conversation about how we can better prepare our students for success at the individual level and our economy for success. We're very excited about the many ways we can promote economic mobility and skill development while immediately plugging people into unfilled roles. So thank all of you for being leaders in this work nationally and in Colorado, and I look forward to collaborating with you for many years to come. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Polis. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us. On behalf of the Opportunity at Work team, we've been inspired and delighted to partner with the state in the STARS Public Sector Hub. Okay, friends, now it's just us. The folks from the main stage have signed off, so we can talk about whatever we want, all of us watching from around the country. So for this more intimate conversation, I want to introduce Sherry McKinney, who is a star working for the state of Colorado. I am so excited for you all to hear her story. Sherry, welcome and thank you so much for being a part of this event.
Audrey, thank you so much.
I'm so happy to have you here. I've so enjoyed getting to know you, Sherry. I want to start at the beginning if we can. Can you tell me about the first time you heard the term STAR and what did that term even mean for you?
You know, I don't really remember the first time that I came across it, but once I learned what STAR stands for, which is, skilled through alternative routes, it really clicked for me. It was definitely one of the first labels that anyone's given me that actually felt accurate. I'm not very big on titles, but this one seemed to make space for people like me who've built a career out of experience rather than a degree.
I love that. It's super powerful, Sherry. Prior to that point then, and the STARS term, how did you think about your pathway?
I've never seen my path as less than. It's just different. I didn't go to college because I didn't have the support or the resources. And frankly, I didn't want to take on the debt for something that didn't feel like the right fit. So I've always cared about learning. So I've built my career one skill, one job, and one challenge at a time. So I'm very proud of where that path has taken me.
That's a great way of saying it, Sherry, and you should be proud for sure. I would love to hear actually a little bit more about your career. Would you tell us about how your journey started?
My journey didn't start with, one great big decision. It really unfolded through a series of smaller ones, and often without a lot of guidance. I left home at 16, and I had to figure out a lot on my own. There was no roadmap, so I definitely made my own. I didn't know exactly where things were going to lead, but I've kept going. I've always learned by doing and not by sitting still. And over time, I started to trust that by just showing up and staying curious, that I would find my way.
So there are two really important points coming up for me. The first, Sherry, is just an incredible and remarkable resilience you had to possess at such a young age. And the second is your recognition that you would learn best by doing. And that's not terribly unusual, but it's great to have you point it out. I'd love for you to talk a bit about your hands-on approach and how you carried that into your career. Talk a little bit, if you would, about the roles that helped shape the work that you are doing now.
Okay. I've had a pretty unconventional path. It didn't seem that way to me, but when I look back, though, there's definitely a clear thread. So I started in bookkeeping, where I learned to manage details and systems and data. And then after a decade, I wanted more connection in my work. So I pivoted to aesthetics. And then that's where I found out how much it mattered to me to work directly with people, listening, building trust, and helping them feel comfortable and cared for. And then running my own business brought it all together. It wasn't just about offering services. It was about HR, operations, compliance, and payroll. And so all of a sudden, everything that I'd done before had really prepared me for it. So when I was ready to close that chapter, I moved into HR full time. And so now I work in state government, the state of Colorado, actually, supporting employees with medical and family leave. And so every step along the way built the skill set that I'm using today.
Sherry, I love that, and particularly the way you built a set of skills step by step along your journey is so powerful. That combination of the very human skills and care for people that you have alongside the operational skills that you had to build as a business owner, and how all that brought you to this point today working for the state of Colorado. As you know, we just heard from Governor Polis, and he talked about his executive order promoting skills-first hiring. Was that policy a factor in you taking a position with the state?
Oh, absolutely. Before I applied to the state, I submitted more than 120 job applications, and I tailored my resume and my cover letter for every single one. I'm actually pretty sure there might be a few people in this meeting who passed by my application without realizing it. So, but the state's process was different. It didn't ask for a resume, it asked for experience. And so that shift, which started with Governor Polis's executive order that promoting skills-based hiring, just really made all the difference for me. So for the first time, it really felt like I was being evaluated properly, fairly, just not just on paper, but for all the skills and for the experience that I actually do bring.
So let's fast forward. I know you haven't been with the state even a year yet. Can you talk a little bit more about what you do now and just to help us tie a bow and pull that thread? How did your experience open that door?
Absolutely. So now I manage benefits and leave for the state of Colorado, helping employees navigate their medical issues, their family emergencies, and other big moments that impact their lives and their work. So it's a role that brings together my process thinking, my attention to detail, and the deep care that I've always had for the people that I support.
I love that. That is such a testament to skills-first hiring in action. I want to look back a little bit. Was there anyone who helped you see your own potential?
I would say just like anyone who's, been out in the world for a while, you probably have more people to thank than you even recognize. And so for me, it really starts from the family that let me move in with them when I was 16. And, Rita, who made sure that I graduated high school, to the first employer that gave me that aptitude test and helped me build the foundation in bookkeeping that has supported the rest of my entire career. To the friend that I met on a trip to Africa, who was so struck with my intuition and strategic thinking that years later she offered me a position in HR. So I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for all those moments where somebody recognized my potential. And often that was before even I did.
Sherry, what do you want people to really understand about your story and about STARS more broadly as we start to bring our time together to a close?
I think the thing that I would like for people to understand the most is just because somebody didn't go the college route doesn't mean they aren't serious, capable, or committed. I've always been a lifelong learner. It just didn't happen in the classroom. So being a star to me means being resourceful, being motivated, being self-driven. It's not a shortcut. It's just a different kind of a strength.
All right. Last question. Love that. As you look ahead, what do you think the future holds for STARS and for the skills first hiring movement?
You know, I'm honestly very excited for the momentum that I see behind skills-based hiring. And I can tell that it's growing just from the time that I was looking for a job last year till now. You know, for too long, I believe we've measured people by things that truly don't reflect what they're capable of. So, you know, STARS have been out here doing the work for a long time. What's changing right now is that employers are finally starting to notice. That shift isn't just good for STARS, it's good for everyone. And so I'm excited, I'm hopeful, and I'm ready to see more stars shine.
Sherry, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It is such an inspiration. You have shared your examples of skill building, your ingenuity, your grit and perseverance. And I think, you know, one of the things that I'm struck by is we started this conversation today with the sense that we can have a huge impact on the American labor market. At Opportunity at Work, we often say that we are trying to rewire the labor market. But at the end of the day, we're not rewiring the labor market for the sake of theory. We really are hoping that the lives of individual workers change. And you are a shining example of what can happen if workers who are stars are given access and opportunity. So thank you so much for sharing your example and your story and your remarkable journey with us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for involving me in this. This has been such a joy.
Well, I want to thank all our speakers who have dedicated their time and their efforts to this movement. We appreciate you. It's frankly an honor to work alongside you. Now, today we've confronted the reality of the paper ceiling, a barrier that has for far too long obstructed the potential of millions of stars. This is a moment of massive change and transformation. AI, the economy, uncertainty is everywhere. But this is also a moment of clarity. With this data, we now know how to turn this transformation into a force for good. In times of great change, history doesn't just happen, it's shaped. It can bend toward inequality or toward opportunity. The difference is what we choose to do. Stars are the key to a stronger economy, to inclusive talent pipelines, to upward mobility for people, places, and pathways. Stars are key to a country that grows together, not apart. It is precisely in moments of uncertainty when leaders and champions design and build the future they want to see. We stand at a pivotal moment, equipped with new tools, groundbreaking research, and a growing movement. The challenge before us is audacious, no doubt, but we have proven it is possible to solve, step by step. So now is not the time to stop, slow down, and certainly not to pull away. Now is the time for acceleration. No single person or even organization can do this work alone. The power to tear down this paper ceiling lies with us collectively. It is the collective that has already set course and inspired the first milestones. There are a set of actions we hope you choose. If you can, invest in this movement. If you are an employer, join our networks. If you are already working with us, thank you. Continue to invite your peers, customers, partners, or suppliers to join us in tearing the paper ceiling. Share what you heard here today with your networks. Share with them why you are tearing the paper ceiling. And whatever your role, champion stars. We hope you're leaving this moment with a commitment to rewrite the narrative of the American workforce. Together, we can forge a future where skills are the true currency of mobility and where every star has the opportunity to rise, thrive, and achieve to their fullest potential. The future of work is skilled, diverse, and equitable. Let's build it together. Thank you.